Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Atlanta Rise podcast. We are so excited to finally launch this podcast out in the metro Atlanta area, where we are lifting up the concerns and the voices of the Atlanta community. We are so excited to have Julian Smith with us today, who's going to kickstart this podcast off for us. And we want you to stay tuned to support the work that we're doing out here. We have great things that are coming in the Atlanta area. Please continue following us, continue lifting up our messages as we drive this message forward in the Atlanta community. Thank you so much, and we're jumping right into it. We're so excited to start our first podcast in ATL. This is going to be so epic. Tonight, we have an amazing guest, Julian Smith from Decatur, Georgia, who's going to be talking to us about his story and the things that he has been able to do in education and uplifting young people. So I'm excited to be joining with Julian and just to be able to launch this podcast for the first time. We're going to be uplifting the voices of the local Atlanta community and talking about the things that really matter to the residents out here. So Julian, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I'm excited to share this space with you, and I'm just excited to learn more about your pathway and the things that you've been doing out here. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of like your story, just to start us off?
Sure. Thanks, Shaniqua, and thank you for the opportunity to share, for an Atlanta native to share what's happening in our city. My story is, yes, as you mentioned, I'm from Decatur, Georgia. I am a trumpet player. I studied both at public school and charter school.
Nice.
So my experience in education has been both. And after graduating Southwest DeKalb High School here, I earned a full scholarship to Bethune-Cookman University.
Amazing.
Where I actually majored in accounting.
Nice.
I thought, hey, you get a degree, and after you graduate, make $1 million. But as we know, it doesn't quite work like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had some success in my trumpet playing, traveling internationally.
Amazing.
And that's kind of, as I traveled, that also exposed the disparities of the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to touch my community so that they're prepared to be able to embrace the opportunities that are available.
That's amazing. And I love that story, just your journey and how you started out. You talked about being in public schools. You then transitioned over to charter schools. You went and got a full scholarship. Congratulations on that. And was able to finish college and tour the world and see the disparities. And today we're actually dealing with that, the disparities in education, especially in Decatur. And we know that, for those that don't know, you are a middle school teacher.
Yes.
And so we'll love to hear more, even about that journey. What led you into education and to being a middle school teacher?
Wow. For me, as I mentioned, I had my business aspirations, but as an artist and activist organizer, I realized that corporate America wasn't allowing me to be me.
Right.
And thankful to my parents who exposed me to these struggles and the sacrifices for us to get education. Mm-hmm. I felt that pull to just play my part mm-hmm. in my community,
right.
To be able to speak their language,
right.
yet uplift them to where they aspire to be.
Yeah. I love that. And it sounds like, and I love that story, like being able to stand on the shoulders of your parents who paved the way for you to be able to go into education. I also would love to know more about what was it like for you growing up in Decatur, going into public schools. What was that experience like for you firsthand?
Very friendly, because most of the times you go to school with the people you play rec ball with. Mm. The people you may go to church with, right. Your neighbors. And that part was, the social aspect was good.
Right.
As far as the disparities, yes, in terms of equipment, in terms of what's in the band room.
Right.
So I teach at McNair Middle School, mm-hmm. and now it's a $44 million school, mm-hmm. But now, when I went to MacDon Middle School, it wasn't such. And now I see how important it is having a football field
Right.
that's level, having the media center
Yeah.
that's equipped. And I can say that in comparison to, let's say, North DeKalb or other areas,
Right.
even though we may have gotten the same education, some of the instruments to be able to compete and so that you can get to the next level weren't as readily available. Especially in terms of the extracurricular activities. Because what may not have been in school, other communities, their parents can bring them to whatever their mind can conceive. And I feel that is one of the major disparities happening in our community.
I love that you lifted that up. I think it's so important, extracurricular activities for our kids. If they are not given the opportunities to explore what they love and what they like to do, how are they ever going to find their passion and be able to reach their full potential? And so, most people know I'm originally from New York and recently living in Atlanta. And so I see very similar issues in New York City. We have a huge issue with not having enough extracurricular activities for kids.
Wow.
One of the first things that went was after school programming, music and art programs for kids. But these are the programs that we know are essential to them being able to reach their full potential. And there's so much research out there that supports when kids are in music and art, that it actually supports their academics. But it would make sense that these are also the programs that are not supported in our communities.
Yes, and there's so many factors to that point, as well as about parental involvement.
Yeah.
Where in one community, the parents, because of their education and because of their income, they have the availability and resource to, in comparison to where, and even for myself, what's so beautiful about us as a people, and historically, even when we haven't had, we still were able to compete.
Oh, yeah.
I was, during college, I had the opportunity to perform at Disney World.
Nice.
And as a musician, I know where I came from, as far as the resources. And I was playing with people from University of Florida and Florida State, and I realized, like, whoa, I'm there and better, even though. But however, like what Deion Sanders is doing at Jackson State, yes, we had the talent, but with the proper equipment, we can excel at another level.
Our kids, I find that Black children, kids of color, are often there's not a level playing field for our kids. I want to share something personal today. I actually was at middle school tour for my daughter. She gratefully has been able to be in private school her whole life. That wasn't my story growing up, right? I come from the abstract poverty, but being able to come up, work my way through the ranks, and be able to provide a better life for my daughter, she has not been able to see the things that I've seen, and I did not want that to be her story. However, today, as I was starting in middle school, her middle school tour, I noticed, I won't say the name of the school for like confidentiality, but I noticed that this particular school, it just seemed like a whole secret society. They were training their kids, predominantly white institution, but training their children to be top industry leaders, to be the top of the world. And they were treating them like kings and queens. And it while I was happy, the other part of me was very saddened. I was brokenhearted because I thought about the kids in our local schools, our public schools, that can't even see a theater or probably never visited a theater, yet alone these children have theaters on their campuses. They have stadiums on their school campuses, and they're in elementary school. Wow. And so, and listening to even the kids, their pronunciation and how they presented themselves and how they were able to articulate themselves eloquently as young as 12 years old. And I'm like, our kids struggle with something as simple as speech. So have you noticed like these types of disparities in Atlanta? And again, I'm new here, so I noticed this and today, and I was just, I was taken all the way back.
Yes. Wow. As a history teacher, there's so many factors. Um, and to directly answer the question, yes, especially speech, especially with aspiration,
Yeah.
especially with the concept of the type of work ethic that's needed to reach a goal.
Right.
Those conversations seemed almost foreign to and what I see plays into that is that what they see and what they hear
Right.
constantly. If mumble rap is popular, so where the rapper can speak in a way that the children can understand, but now the child isn't realizing that this rapper is doing a job. They have agents that speak for them.
Right.
So the rapper doesn't go in the interview with a lawyer and an accountant speaking like that.
Right.
So this is where I seek to help. And historically, we remember that even on the plantation, it was illegal, forbidden to be caught with a book, to be intelligent,
Even read.
And this is where I've seen many of the disparities are perpetuated. And it's interesting as far as here in Atlanta, where I like to also hold leaders. I'm seeking ways to hold leaders accountable.
Right.
We have 5 black colleges. We've had a black mayor for almost 50 years.
Oh yeah. Right.
So how is it that we have these disparities in historically black communities when we have
Black representation? That's so powerful because most places don't have that, right? Atlanta is such a hub for Black excellence. So you would want to see at least the outcomes different or at least improved over time, especially when you have, and I mean, it's very fitting tonight is election night. So, our local leaders, our political leaders, our politicians, what are they doing to help this issue? Have you noticed any particular local leaders that have been helping out specifically in the realm of education and in addressing the gap?
that ties into the system of how it's being that the educational system is governed by school board.
Right.
And it also plays into parents being able to advocate. And however, I see when I reach out to politicians, I do get some feedback.
Okay.
However, I'm not feeling the sense of urgency from politicians.
Right.
In terms of education, and whether it be funding, whether it be the after school programs.
Right.
And it is an interesting concept because, right, in a democracy, it's by the people.
Right.
If the people
Supposed to be.
are organized,
right.
Whereas in comparison to one community, the parents know and are friends with the elected officials. So, and they know the language to use.
That's right. That's right.
And in comparison to other, we don't know may not know the difference between a council member and a commissioner.
Right. That's huge. That's huge, Julian. I remember. Spoiler alert. I'm not sure if I even told you, but I actually ran for city council in New York, in the general elections last year. And I remember when talking to voters, I was saying, okay, so you're in this district. And they argued me, well, this is not district so-and-so. This is district. I'm like, no, that's called a Congress district. That's not a council district. And so a lot of times our people are not educated about things as simple as what district do you live in? Who's your local representative?
Yes.
I've asked people out here many times and they're like, right. But that this is information that we need to know because that's our power to be civically engaged, to know who our representatives are, and to be able to have the strategies to reach out to them when we need something and to make a demand on them because we elected them to do a role and to play a role. And if they're not doing that part, we have to hold them accountable.
Yeah, and that accountability piece is something that we're definitely here in Atlanta that It's very interesting, and especially the intergenerational.
Right.
Whereas, okay, you have the Andy Young generation, right? And right, he's 90, and I'm 36, and like my 80 people who were born in 85, we ready to take the reins, but sometimes it's hard to learn who has it.
Wow. Wow.
Who's going to show us how to,
Mm.
and especially in given the fact of having to just live, that's also a factor.
So it sounds like we also need like mentorship. The
Yes.
generation before us,
Yes.
giving us the strategies, opening up the doors for us, giving us access.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that we really struggle with as Black people, is access to the things that we deserve and that we need.
Yes. It's so interesting. Like here in Atlanta, we have one of the first federally funded colleges was Atlanta University, and Dr. Du Bois taught here, and it is what made Atlanta a hub for Black excellence.
Wow.
Was the Black schools. However, one of the matrix points, one of the paradigm shifts was integration.
Mm.
You know, so while we lost, we traded control of our schools for association.
Mm-hmm. What happened during that, if you don't mind talking? You're a history teacher.
Yes.
What sort of, if you can give like a quick history lesson of what happened and when integration took place, what did that mean for Black communities?
For one example I like to use is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't take any standardized tests. He didn't have to pass a milestone. But yet he went to segregated schools and classes in his own community.
Right.
But yet he became one of the most intelligent and articulate men in American history.
Right.
But yet, after integration, where's this brilliance and articulate, erudite dignity and negotiating with federal policy?
Right.
So I think that what happened is we just tried to integrate into white society for affluence.
Right.
Because it might have been a little easier, you know, to work with it. They may have had a few more opportunities. And so, for example, like Auburn Avenue and like, you know, gentrification is, so we left our inner city to move to the suburbs because we got the job at the corporation now.
Right.
And we left all of our inner cities, right? And it just created this big gap. Because now the children of the people who left the inner city and went for the job, they aren't quite connected to, you know, that lineage of struggle. And and as well on accountability in terms of people who sit in positions, when corporations come to them with certain deals, those individuals really advocating to say, if you're going to be in this community, you have to pay your fair share.
Right.
So one example I can give is the $1 billion stadium.
Okay.
To date, they're not paying their fair share of property tax, which takes away from that immediate community,
Right.
and which could develop. But if the people in the community aren't organized,
Right.
and they don't understand that, you know, they should be paying the state tax, they should be paying that will go back into the community instead of just sitting in the community
Right.
and just sitting for free.
And it sounds like civic engagement is really our place of power, but often a place where we're most disenfranchised. So I love the work that Stacey Abrams have been doing.
Yes.
And in Georgia, just getting people that traditionally don't vote out to vote.
Yes.
You know, it's very disheartening when you see Blacks that are so they're in a place where they are hopeless and they don't feel like change is ever going to happen. The other day, a few weeks back, I was door knocking, canvassing, and there was a older Black gentleman who was like, "I'm not going to vote. I've been here for," I think he's at 67 years. And he's like, "I'm not voting." And it broke my heart because I said, what happened to make you get to a place where you just lose trust in government and trust in leaders, you know? And I had white counterparts that were with me and they were like, he was snobby. And, you know, I had some words for them. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about where that came from. Number
Yeah.
one, he clearly doesn't trust government
Right.
because there was a gap in trust. Like, we got to talk about these things. We can't just talk
Yeah.
about people not wanting to vote, but why are people so disenfranchised that they don't want to go to the polls? I mean, that's not the answer, but we also got to deal with the root of the issue. People
Yeah.
have been disenfranchised in our
True.
communities. They've been promised things and it hasn't happened. They've been stolen
Yeah.
from. They've been forgotten about. They've been ignored, and they're tired and they don't
Yeah.
deserve that. So, you know, we also have to lift up these real issues as well.
Yes. As you're mentioning, like the apathy comes from trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And after you see $1 billion stadium go up next to poverty,
Mm-mm-mm.
right? You see the $400,000 and $500,000 condo houses, townhomes being next to $50,000, $60,000 house.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that there are certain codes and there are certain
Mm-hmm.
permits that only can come from government.
Right.
So as you're mentioning, but it also ties into our competitiveness
Right.
that we do, which goes back to education.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we didn't know, wow, perhaps we might want to put a few additions on the house.
Right.
Perhaps we might, you know what? Let's just buy the house next door.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and especially,
Teaching wealth too. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
mhm,
it just reminded me of our kids and in schools. The fact that I don't know if this is the case in Metro Atlanta or DeKalb County, but they typically don't learn things like financial literacy and
right,
credit, and these are things
right,
that our kids really
right,
need to be learning so that they
right.
know how to make decisions like that later on in life.
As you mentioning, and even in my experience, I didn't learn about credit until after school. I had to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
You
Same
know,
here. Same
when,
here.
so what's beautiful is we do have the opportunities to educate. We have platforms like this
Right.
where we can get into media, and that's really what's shaping our youth today. As far as I think that
Mm-hmm.
another change is the family unit in
Right.
terms of like segregation and integration
Mm-hmm.
is that where what didn't happen in school happened at home,
Right.
or it happened at church.
Right.
So a lot of kids today, not getting it at home,
Right.
not going to church,
Mm.
so they're being raised by the media.
Right. Right.
And where too many which trap rap is something out that's popular, that came from Atlanta, was made popular in Atlanta,
Mm.
and in my opinion, it's the soundtrack to the school to prison pipeline.
Wow. Mm.
Drug abuse,
Mm.
criminal behavior,
Mm.
flashy money, gun violence,
Mm.
and our children, they don't see it as entertainment.
Right.
Where the rapper gets to go buy a mansion
Mm-hmm.
outside of the hood,
Outside the hood. That's right. Mm-hmm.
or and like I'm wearing Nipsey Hussle here, or okay, he made his money, he came back to the hood to try,
Mm-hmm.
and that same element,
Right.
and so we have much opportunity, and like as you mentioning, really understanding the situation,
Right.
like the reality of it, not where we would like it to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, is a key aspect of how we get to solutions.
Right. I'm wondering what kind of solutions, what does it look like, right? I'm thinking about the social media aspect. I'm thinking about the way in which the world is going, right? And we didn't even get to touch on COVID, but
Mm.
the world has changed, right? The world in which we live now, it is a very different world from what it looked like 3 years ago. Things have
Yes.
changed. Things are now on media. Most things are online. We're now moving into
Yes.
to something called metaverse, right?
Right.
Virtual reality. There's so many changes that are going on, and it's not going to stop, right? And our kids
Right.
are so this is their reality, right?
Right.
Growing up, I think you're a millennial as well. We had the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't necessarily grow up with the internet until probably around high school or
Mm-hmm.
college years. And so we know what life was like before that, right?
Right.
Whereas these kids, they're born into this world, and this is their first language. This is the way they interact. The way they see the world is different. The way they interact with the world is different. And so I'm wondering, how do we use social? How do we leverage social media as a solution to really help our young people, namely our kids of color, our Black youth?
I think the idea of the record label and the media company and helping them, like how we're doing here, they can set up, record,
I love that.
produce, producing their own media, and and just reconnecting. Okay, T.I., okay, Gucci Mane, okay, Senator Warnock. All right, look, this is what we have, and that's why I love the concept of your organization, I Raise.
Right.
This is how we uplift ourselves from this condition.
Yeah.
Because what's beautiful is Booker T. Washington did it. Marcus Garvey did it with much less.
Right.
And however, they're right. There are some comparisons in that we wasn't killing each other then.
Right.
So it's I think it's just us, that whole village concept.
Right.
Right? I'm not the best cook. But if you want some live music during your dinner, great.
Right. I love that. Right.
So us continuing to shine our gifts, and we do, and listen, like you're doing, listening to the teachers. It's every time there's a crisis, media or Black crisis, people go to the rappers and the athletes.
So true. So I think also, I love the village concept, and what does our village look like, right? It looks like our rappers, and it looks like our athletes, and it looks like our local teachers and our churches. That really is the village that our kids really need and depend on. And so I love the idea of engaging them through social media, because that is the way that they communicate. A lot of times that is their outlet. So we, instead of shunning it away, and I teach my staff this all the time. I had one staff who was like, she's a therapist. And so one of our programs in New York City that we're looking to bring to Atlanta is a mental health program for students in schools.
Okay.
And so one of the therapists was really upset because her student wouldn't engage with her in a session. And I said, well, what is the student doing that he's not engaging with you? She's like, well, he's playing Roblox. I'm like, well, play with him. Play Roblox with him.
Yeah.
Download Roblox on your phone and get into his world and find out what's going on. And sometimes we expect kids to come into our world, but the reality is we have to get into their world. We have to meet them where they are, really, to reach them.
So true. So true. We have to reach before we teach.
Love that. I love that.
And this is, as we were mentioning, like with Stacey Abrams, I have her picture up in the room.
I love it.
Because she is a DeKalb County graduate.
Nice. Shout out to Stacey Abrams.
Ooh, on election night. A HBCU graduate, intelligent, articulate, but yet there is like this disconnect, as far as with the youth, really identifying, not just with her, it happened with Obama.
Right.
It just happens with, it's interesting to observe, what our children aspire, what they may feel that's beyond them, or they're not, whether it be good enough or
right, inferiority complex. These are the messages that they're receiving from society that they have internalized. I talk a lot about social contract that we're born into, and that social contract says that Blacks are inferior and that we are born to be less than. And so these are the images that kids pick up. They internalize it through media. They internalize it through the way they're treated, through the way their schools look, through the lack of resources that they experience, through the crime in their neighborhoods, through their broken homes. These are the messages that tell our kids they're not good enough. They're not as good as their white counterparts. So, it's a social contract. You're born into this. You did not ask to be born into it.
Right.
You didn't get it. You didn't choose to say, hey, I opt out of this. I don't want any part of systemic racism. You
Right.
don't get that option. You're born into this world. And so we have to teach our kids how to navigate through these systems, how to break and shatter glass ceilings, and also how to create access for our generation of kids.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that this it continues to build on the media and media companies that will reward someone acting a fool.
Hmm.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
you
100%.
um and as also as we were speaking on like the kind of COVID effect on education.
Hmm.
So I actually became a teacher like in the pandemic. It just
Wow.
it,
Wow.
it took me about 5 years to actually make that transition
Right.
into the classroom, and
Hmm.
so I decided to keep going. So as you mentioned, I came from kind of the traditional individual desk, books,
Right.
paper, pencil,
Hmm.
but that's not, as you mentioned. And kids have a laptop. You
Hmm.
go to a website,
Right.
and at first I was resistant. I was like, no, we're going to get to this textbook and we're going to, exactly. So as you were mentioning with the roadblocks, I had to adjust like,
Hmm.
okay, turn on the video and read the subcaptions,
That's right.
you know?
Hmm.
Okay, so education in the 21st century,
Hmm.
we do have to address.
Yes, yes, that's huge. I know we're wrapping up, but I love that. I think one of the things that I really wanted to hear about is your vision for the schools
Mhm.
in Decatur and DeKalb County. But I think I just want to put this plug in that our school system, the way that it is designed now,
Mhm.
is based on a world that no longer exists. We have archaic methodologies, systems, practices, curriculum, and we're not setting our kids up to have the skills needed to thrive and to lead in their industries. And so, what does it look like? That vision look like for you to reimagine our
Mhm.
schools in Atlanta for our Black youth? What
Mm.
does it look like?
It ties back into our black colleges,
Mm-hmm.
connecting with our school systems,
Mm-hmm.
starting from kindergarten through K through 12. It's the intergenerational, it's the interconnectedness,
Right.
so that a student is not just looking at you as a teacher,
Mm.
as an individual, but they know they have aspiration of, okay, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta,
Right.
Spelman,
Mm-hmm.
Morris Brown, ITC, and also Georgia State,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Tech, and as a kinder, okay, and these schools have, because they're here,
Mm.
have opportunity to, hey, teacher training programs.
Right.
It also looks like the church is being involved with after school programs.
Yes.
It also looks like businesses being sponsors of those after school
I love
programs.
that.
It also looks like our politicians creating policies that make it a
Yes.
little bit easier.
A lot easier.
Yeah, you know, to facilitate those. So I think we, having Dr. Martin Luther King, we have a lot of our black colleges are on Martin Luther King.
Hmm.
And so we have opportunity to be a prototype for the nation.
I love that. I believe that I really truly seen that vision when you were saying it. I was imagining it, and it looked great. It looked like young Black kids being supportive, feeling heard, being seen, feeling loved and accepted, and having a community of belonging that truly supported them so that they could reach their full potential and thrive. It looked like a village of people that really were invested in our kids, and that's exactly what they need. So I love that
Yes.
vision, and I'm hoping and praying that we can work together along with some other people in Atlanta to really bring that fruition to make it come to so it comes to pass. It really
Yes.
needs to.
Yes. And it is, as yourself and like minds and like hearts, because even in the classroom, I realize, so I'm a scholar, and I realize that it don't matter how much I know
Mhm.
until they feel I care.
That's right. That's
Yeah, I need to know how to teach and
mhm.
what I'm talking about, but once I realize, okay, I got to plug that into caring
Mhm.
and structure so that I'm not judging them for not reading well.
Right.
I'm not judging them because they may be in the 8th grade reading on the 4th grade level,
Right.
and having these expectations. Well, but say, okay, look, that's where we are.
Mhm.
We'll start with this word.
Mhm. And I love that teachers are so vital and being a part of that village. You are the ones that spend the most time with the students. So I think also a part of that reimagining plan is supporting teachers better, because teacher burnout is real.
Yeah,
Teacher stress is real.
yes.
So we want to support teachers also in that journey, because you guys matter too. You guys are really, really pivotal figures in that, in that village. So yeah. And thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the work that the work that you do in the community for Decatur, for our students. I think it's commendable that you have been able to be a student at McNair and now a teacher.
Yeah.
I love that. It's you've been able to give back. That is the epitome of giving back. So thank you so much. And I hope that there are more Black men like you that aspire to do the same, because we truly need them.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
received that.
Thank you. And any last words you want to leave before we wrap up
Um,
about your work or the things that you're doing in the community?
like now is the time. The stage is set for those that say you want to lead, you want to organize. Now is the time. I'm understanding the nonprofit sector is a space that I'm looking to lead, and especially as it relates to uplifting Black children,
Yes.
which is its own unique thing. So through the J.K. Smith Senior Foundation, through trumpet lessons, boxing lessons, and history lessons, that's my contribution.
Love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing. So if there are kids in Metro Atlanta that are interested in trumpet lessons, boxing, or
History lessons.
they're getting the whole menu. Then you can reach out to Julian. We'll make sure we put like the link below so that those that are interested could reach out to you. But thank you again for being a role model to our kids, for being a teacher, for stepping up to the plate in the middle of a world pandemic. I mean, that says it all. Thank you. And we are excited that you were our first guest on our show. You started us off on fire, so we have more to come. But this right here, the standard, now that it's high, we got to keep it moving. We got to keep building that
Yes,
momentum.
indeed.
So thank you, Julian. I appreciate you, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We're so excited to, again, lift up these issues that are important to the communities out here. We look forward to our next episode that's going to take place. So stay tuned. All, thank you for your support. Share this message out. We appreciate you all. Stay safe.